Good evening, and welcome back to our weekly question and answer series for anash.org. Question: is it allowed to say Hagomel a month or more after a flight if you didn't have a minion to say it right after the flight? The Alter Rebbe writes inside the Berach Sanhan and Peirik It Gimel, Pashtus Haloshen, the language of the Shulchan Aruch, that if a person did not say Berach Sagomel right after he had to say it, Yesh Loi Tashlimim Kol Zman Shirtze, he could say it as long as he wants. There are some poskim. There is one of the Rishonim, the Ru'u, which says that you shouldn't say it after 30 days. And this is what the Mishnah Berurah says. After 30 days, you shouldn't say Berach Sagomel. But the Alter Rebbe does not paskin like the Ru'u, and he writes that you could say Berach Sagomel as long as you can. That means as long as you want. If you couldn't say it before, it could be even 30 days, and even longer. So therefore, to answer your question, yes, if you didn't have a minion to say it right away, you could say it even though it's after a month from when you flew. Question: if you mix wine which is mevishel with non-mevishel wine, what is the din for goy touching it, looking it? Do you go after the majority or you are machmer? What is the halacha? The answer is the Ben Ish Chai writes Shuna Beis Parshas Bulak. He writes that if a person mixes yain mavishel in yain which is not mavishel, that means wine which is cooked, yain mavishel, even though that the majority of the wine is yain mavishel, if a goy touches it, it's usher to drink. So even if the majority is yain mavishel, it is still considered like it would have been yain which is not mavishel, and has all the halachas that it could become nesach. Question: if a chassan walks in the shul by kriyas haTorah after we said tachnon, do we continue as if we didn't say tachnon? So basically the question is, you said tachnon, and now you have a chassan in shul. Do you say למנצח, יענך, kapitel chof, and do you say tefila l'duvit? And la'niyas dati, I think that since you said tachnon, and you said tachnon because mitzad halacha you have to say tachnon because you had no chosn over there, so it is not a yom she'eino omrim tachnon, and therefore you should say kapitel chof, and you should say tefila l'duvit, and not start from Beis Yaakov. Question: if the minion started saying Elokeinu Elokei v'seinu for tachnon, and then a chosn walks in, or we realize there's a chosn over there, do we stop, or we continue to say at least a couple of words in order that Hashem's name should not be in vain? So this question is a question which is brought down in the poskim. It's a common phenomenon, and the poskim say that if you started to sing L'Kain L'Vakay V'Saini, so Rav Osner and other poskim say you should say till Aval Anachni V'Vaseini Chetonu. You should finish that paragraph. But other poskim say you don't need to end till the end of Chetonu. It is enough if you say till after Valtishala Matchina Seinu. That's enough. And other poskim say that once you say the L'Kain L'Vakay V'Saini, you could say any personal tefillah, or you could say L'Kain L'Vakay V'Saini, you could finish Tishlach Meheru Mashiach Tzidkeni, or Shlach Rafi Shalemu. You could ask for a choilo if you ask for Mashiach, as long as the Rebbeinu Shloim Hashem's name should not be in vain. So the option is or to finish that whole paragraph, or to say till Vatisala Matchina Saini, according to some poskim, or to say any personal tefillah, but not just stop after l'kein v'kei v'seinu, because then it will be like a bracha lavatola. Question: on a day that we don't say tachnon, if we say said lamnatzayach ya'anchu by mistake, should we say it again before tehillim? The answer is obviously no, because the whole reason why you say before tehillim is because he didn't say it by Ashrei Volatzion, by the davening. But since you did say it by davening, there's no point of saying it over by before tehillim. Now again, it's not a problem. It's nothing bad to say extra kapitel tehillim and say a kapitel chov, but you don't have to say it. According to our meaning, that the day that we don't say lamnatzayach kapitel chov by davening, we say it before tehillim, you don't have to say it again. But why not? If the oilem says it again, or you could say it extra kapitel tehillim shat kaimel nicht. Question: the floor was a mess with spilled food, salads and liquid all over. Is there any way according to halacha to mop up the floor? It should be Shabbos dik for tomorrow morning, Shabbos in the morning. The answer is like this: to sweep up the floor, yes, you could do. It's no problem. Although Alter Rebbe Shichanurach writes in Siman Shil Amad Zayin that you could not sweep up a floor which is dusty. That means it's not it doesn't have tiles or parquet. Like once upon a time used to be the floor of the street, so you cannot sweep it because there's a problem, a chashash, that you ashviya gimas. That means you might see a hole in the floor and you're going to cover it up in order to become straight. It should be flat, and then you have a problem of boina. So the Alter Rebbe writes a place which most of the houses, especially in our time when all of the houses have fixed floors, which is parquet or stone or tiles or whatever it should be, carpet, there is no problem to sweep up the floor. But Alter Rebbe writes that's only sweeping. Washing up the floor, it is still osur, even a floor which has tiles. And the Mishnah Brira adds on in Shil Amad Zayin, Sivkut Nid Zayin, that you're going in another extra problem of mopping up. You're going in the problem also of schita, because a mop, when you mop up the floor, automatically you squeeze out water from the mop. So therefore it is osur to mop up the floor on Shabbos, even though it's very dirty. And some poskim add, and some mistabel like that even a goy cannot do it, because he has to do it in a way that he is over of Issa Darais of Schita. So therefore, even a goy is not permitted to say for a goy he should mop up the floor regularly on Shabbos. So going back to your question, you cannot mop it up even though it won't look Shabbosdik. It's like as if, like the Chassam Sofer writes, that the esrig, which a lot of people benched on it, for instance the Rebbe's esrig, after thousands of people touched it, it automatically became brown. So he writes that is the cheshivas, the yoifi, that's the nicekeit of the mitzvah. It became brown because of doing a mitzvah of benching on lulav and esrig. So the same we will say also here, that by not mopping up the floor, although it's dirty, it's nice because you keep Shabbos behidder. Just wanted to mention that the Shmir Shabbos Kilchusa in Peirik Chov Gimel, footnote 27, he brings down from Shem Halm Oibach that although you cannot mop up the floor, but you could spill a little bit water on the place which is very dirty, and then wipe it up with the towel. That will be no problem. That wouldn't be considered of the problem, the Isser of Haducha. But again, you have to watch out. There shouldn't be a oifen in a way that it will become very wet, and you're going to squeeze out the shmata. You're going to squeeze out the towel. So putting spilling a little bit of water on the places which is very dirty, and then taking towel paper or something and wiping it up, this is a thing which could be considered, but you cannot mop up the whole floor. Question: can one own a cat for attachment, meaning to play with it, just having enjoyment by having a cat in the house? Very interesting question. Api halacha, there's no problem. There's no problem to owning a cat for a pet. But we know that the Rebbe was very makpid that children shouldn't see non-kosher animals. So pictures of non-kosher animals, the Rebbe was against that children should see. Al-achas kama v'kama, that you shouldn't have a cat at home, that the children should be able to play, because it's chai tamaya, behema tamaya. Now, the Hemshech question: are there any halacha involved owning a cat? Yes, there is a halacha of owning a pet. One of the things is that you have to know that you have to give him to eat before you eat. Any time that you want to go to eat, you have to make sure that the cat is fed. He has what to eat. Now, if he's fed, you put in to his place food, and whatever he wants, he comes eating there, so that's fine. But again, you have to make sure that he's fed before you start eating. That's number one. And second of all, you have to know the halachas of mikzeh, because an animal is muktzah on Shabbos. Although it's an animal which is owned and it's in your house, it is still muktzah on Shabbos. And you have to learn how to deal with pets when it comes to Shabbos. And final, the end from this question: does having a cat in a Lubavitcher home affect the chinuch of the children living in the home? You bet. You know, a child which goes over a pet in a chassidische stieb, it affects the chinuch of the child. You know, I don't want to elaborate on it, but yes, it is a thing which a Lubavitcher stieb, a Lubavitcher home, a chassidische home, should not have. Question: if it's written on a package that the bracha on the food is a mazoinus next to the hechsher, can we rely on that? The answer is why not? Yes. If the Balmachsher writes that berchos is a mazoinus, so if you rely on him on the hechsher, why shouldn't you rely on him that when he says it's a mazoinus, it's a mazoinus? Question: can mazoinus rolls be used as lechem mishnah? And the answer is no, it cannot be used as lechem mishnah, because you're not going to eat it. When a person takes a mazoinus roll and it's kavaya seed on it, and I'm talking a mazoinus roll which is mazoinus, I'm not talking we could have a discussion if the mazoinus rolls in the United States of America is a mazoinus. We could have a discussion. That's not the question now. Let's assume that we're talking about a mazoinus roll which is with the hechsher of achrei, because they make sure that it should be mazoinus l'choladayas. It's really sweet. It's like a cake. So could that be used for a lechem mishnah? The answer is no. Now, if you take that and you eat it, you kavaya sida on it, although it's 100% a mazoinus. So the Alter Rebbe writes, if you kavaya sida on it, you get full, then you wash and you have to bench. Now, it depends how much is kavaya sida, so we have to learn Alter Rebbe what it means till 6 bites afterwards. But it could be the mazoinus roll could become a hamoitzi if you kavaya sida. So therefore, if a person does not have a hamoitzi roll at home on Shabbos, and wants to take mazoinus roll and eat it, of course that is good for lechem mishnah, because you're going to eat it, you're going to be kavaya sida, and you're going to eat it, so automatically it's hamoitzi. But when you take a lechem mishnah just to put it right next to your hamoitzi challah, and you're taking it only to make a lechem mishnah, so lekitchila you cannot use it as lechem mishnah because it's a mazoinus, it's not a moitzi. Although when you eat it for kvi yisid it becomes a moitzi, but as of now you're not going to eat it. You want to put it back in the freezer or wherever it is. So you cannot be matzaref for a lechem mishnah. Now again, if you don't have something else, then you could use it, because some poskim say you could use it, but other poskim say you cannot use it. This makes sense. And this is what I saw also in Shal Shuvas Oirich Yisrael, Simach of Tes, that you cannot use mazonis ro, which you don't want to eat, for lechem mishnah, at least if you have something else. Question. In the morning I eat my cake and tea in the kitchen. Can I finish my tea in my study room without another bracha? Because I could see my seat from my seat in the study room, I could see the place in the kitchen where I made the bracha. Now, we touched a little bit of this question a couple of shiurim ago, and according to the Alter Rebbe, if you had in mind when you made the bracha that you want to go in a different room in your house, then you have no problem. You could go in that room and continue eating. You don't have to make a bracha again. But if you did not have in mind to move on to other room when you made the bracha, so at least since you went over there and you see your place, you don't have to make a bracha again. But it's not clear that you could do it like kitchila. That means Alter Rebbe writes that if you did it and you went to other room, since you could see the room you were before, you could make a bracha. But it's not clear that you could do it like kitchila. Now, in Siman Reish Ein Aleph, Siv Bais, regarding Kiddush, B'mukim Sida, over there, it comes out that it's only by the Evet you could rely on seeing the place where you made Kiddush. So it could be that the same halacha will apply also to make a bracha. That means only by the Evet, if you went already, you don't have to make a bracha. But going like kitchila, you shouldn't do, only if you had in mind b'shas and bracha that you want to go to a different room. Question. If a stranger comes to shul and says he's in the shloishim, can he push away a member of the shul who has the omad every day during his year? The answer is no. Anyone who is not a member or a mispalel kavua in the shul has no zchus and no right for the omad. So, no, if there is a person which is mispalel kavia, he comes first, and even though the other guy is in the shloishim. Question. By Yesudas bar mitzvah, do you need a minyan? Or even without a minyan, it's still considered a Sudas mitzvah? The answer is, a Sudas mitzvah, you have a minyan mitzad minig, not mitzad, nish medina. So mitzad minig is that every Sudas mitzvah we should have at least a minyan. But even if you don't have a minyan, it is still a Sudas mitzvah. You could see him, Ramshik has a tshiva regarding this in Yadai Shim Paivuf. So coming back to your question, if you make a bar mitzvah less than 10 people, it is a Sudas mitzvah. But you should try to have a minyan, because that's the minig. Especially according to the Magen Avraham, which brings down a zoyer, that a person should make a bar mitzvah, the day of the bar mitzvah, and the Siddur bar mitzvah is the same as going into a chippah, and that's for sure by chippah you should have a minyan. But that's mitzad minig, mitzad halacha, you don't need a minyan, and it's still considered the Siddur mitzvah. Question. How to cook fish in a fleishige oven, pots or pans? Me'ikar adin, if the pot is clean, you could cook meat, you could cook fish in a pot which is meat, because it is only blias, and when it comes to blias means only the taste which is in the walls of the pot, and when it comes to the skona of meat and fish, we don't consider blias a problem. And therefore, if you have a pot which is a fleshige pot which is clean, you could cook in that pot fish. There are some people which are makpat not to cook it even though it's clean, and I once heard that the Rebbe Rashab was makpat on it, but the world, most of the people are not makpat, and according to halacha, it's not a problem. Question: how to avoid yichud when house repairs, renovations are being done? The answer to this is like this. We know there's a halacha that if the door is opened, then there is no yichud. It's called Pesach Pesuach L'Rosh Hashanah. If the door is opened, then there's not a problem of yichud. And the poskim write that if the door is opened, it will help even if it's a goy. Not all the hatayrim which you have by yichud will help if the other person is a goy. But if the door is opened, it is enough, and it's considered Pesach B'siach, and it is not a problem even if it's a goy. Now in Pesach B'siach we have machloikas if the door has to be unlocked or the door has to be opened a little bit. And when it comes to such a shala of yichud with a goy, it is kedai that you shouldn't rely on a killer by just opening the door. It should be also a drop opened. Or you have another option, giving the key or asking other person, a neighbor, a male neighbor, if the goy is a male, so that means it will be yichud, a Jewish woman with a goy. So you have to ask a neighbor which is a male should come into the house from time to time, because then there won't be a problem of yichud, because it is two men with one lady, and during the day it should be fine. So, or the door should be opened, or if you don't want the door to be opened, you want it to be locked, closed, but at least it will not be locked, then ask the neighbor should come in from time to time. Or if you have a shomer in that house, that means if you have a child which is from 5 years old and older, if it's a girl, it's only till 9 years old. If it's a boy, it could be even older. If they are there when the goy is there, then they are shombram also not to be yichud. And also over here you can have be matzaraf the poskim which say iman loy mayra reschusa. That means that a person which is a professional worker with a license will not do things which will get him in trouble and lose his parnasa. So the solution to your question is that you should open the door, and it should be opened, or it should be unlocked, and a neighbor male should come in from time to time. Or you have a child, a boy from 5 and up, and a girl from 5 till 9, which they are shombram, and that will be good enough. It shouldn't be yichud. But if you don't have neither of these solutions, you cannot have a goy coming in to do repairs in your house when you're alone, and there's a problem of yichud. Okay, we stop here, and please join us next week and send in your questions to inbox@anash.org. And Amirat Hashem, next week we're going to start addressing the questions regarding Pesach, kashering, what need to be cleaned, and send in all your questions, so we should be able to address it in a timely manner. Good night and have a wonderful week.